Understanding behavior. In this module, we will discuss that all behavior is communication, the functions of behavior, how we can support our students, and final thoughts. Human behavior. All human behavior, whether adaptive or maladaptive, is learned. Learning occurs as a result of the consequences that follow a behavior. Whether adaptive or not, we behave in ways that get our needs met. Behavior is observable and measurable. All behavior is communication. The student population within our schools is diverse and the needs of the students vary considerably. Whether a student has a formal diagnosis may not be known to you, and it may not be relevant either. Ultimately, the science of behavior views all human behavior as communication. We behave in ways to get our needs met. Students do not engage in challenging behavior to get a rise out of an adult or for the sake of just being difficult. A student who is engaging in problem behavior is communicating something to us in the only way that they know how. What is behavior communicating to us? Students may engage in problem behavior to communicate a variety of things. Some examples include frustration. Perhaps a task is way too difficult for them. Their needs not being met. Maybe they're hungry, tired, or not feeling well. Understimulated. Perhaps they're bored with the activity or current task. Maybe they're lonely. What happens when we cannot communicate what we need? If you could not verbally communicate something that you wanted, did not want, or even feared, you might scream, cry, run away, take someone else's toys, pull hair, scratch, or throw items. When you do not have the ability to verbally communicate your wants and your needs, you use your behavior to get your message across. Functions of behavior. There are 4 functions of behavior, or 4 reasons why people engage in the behaviors they do. They are sensory, escape, attention, and tangible. These functions of behavior are true for all humans, children and adults alike. What will set people apart is whether or not they have the required skills, such as communication skills or social skills, to get their needs met in a pro-social, appropriate way. Sensory. The sensory function refers to any behavior that an individual engages in because that behavior internally feels good for them. For example, humming. A student may hum while completing a difficult task because they find it relaxing and it helps them focus. The internal sensation provided while humming will make the student more likely to hum again the next time that they are asked to complete a difficult task. Attention. The attention function refers to any behavior that a student engages in to get access to adult or peer attention. This includes negative attention. Negative attention refers to things such as reprimands or corrections. An example would be a student may interrupt a class lesson by making a funny noise, which then makes their peers laugh and look at him or her. The attention, laughter, and looking from the peers will result in the student continuing to engage in this disruptive behavior because it received the attention they want. Escape. The escape function refers to any behavior that a student engages in to avoid or escape unpreferred items, activities, or people. For example, a student who struggles with math may rip up their worksheet after a few minutes because it's just too hard. Having done this before, the student may be sent to the office for being destructive. In the future, the student will likely continue to rip worksheets that are too difficult because that behavior has resulted in the unpreferred item, math worksheets, and math class being removed. Tangible. The tangible function refers to any behavior that occurs because the student wants to gain access to a preferred item, person, or place. For example, while a teacher is giving a lesson, a student may start to fidget, make sounds, and bang on their desk. To minimize any distraction to the rest of the class, the student's educational assistant gives him or her the iPad to play with. In the future, when the student wants the iPad, he or she is more likely to engage in the same disruptive behaviors again. There is always a reason for the behavior. You just don't always know it. Students do not engage in challenging behavior to be difficult. Students do not engage in challenging behavior to be mean. Students do not engage in challenging behavior because they are unkind. Students engage in challenging behavior because they are trying to tell us something. It is our job to figure out what they need from us and to teach them an appropriate way to get their needs met. What do we all want? At the end of the day, we all want to be accepted, to be able to make choices, to be engaged with meaningful activities, to be surrounded by people who care about us, to be listened to be loved. None of us want to be ignored, to be thought of as incompetent, to be controlled, to be bored, to be ridiculed, or to be disliked. A skill-based view of our students. If a student had the ability or skill required to get their needs met in a pro-social, appropriate way, they would. In supporting our students, it is our job to identify any skill deficits that exist. Once we identify a skill deficit, like being able to request attention appropriately, we can teach that student pro-social, appropriate ways to get their needs met. When a pro-social behavior gets the student's need met, but the inappropriate behavior no longer does, the student will stop engaging in the inappropriate behavior. Let's go through an example. A student regularly engages in disruptive behavior, speaking out, banging on their desk, and wandering around the class, all while the teacher tries to give a lesson. This often results in the teacher repeatedly asking the student to quiet down and eventually go wait in the hall. This pattern of behavior has been occurring for at least a month. Based on this information, it is likely that the student engages in disruptive behavior to escape a situation which is difficult for him or her, the oral class lesson. This student does not have the appropriate skills required to ask for a break, or they may not know that this is an option for them. Instead of having the student get their needs met in a maladaptive way, we can teach the student to instead request a break and have their needs met in a much more appropriate way. After identifying why the student's disruptive behavior was occurring, the school team decided to implement a body break system. The student was taught that they could access 3 body breaks per day. These body breaks were 5 minutes long, and the student could go on an exercise bike, jump rope, bounce on a yoga ball, or even do jumping jacks. After the break, the student knew that he or she had to return to the class. Over time, the student's disruptive behavior decreased significantly, and he or she was no longer being sent into the hall. It can be easy to view challenging behavior as frustrating and to take it personally. There can also be a mindset of the student somehow winning because they got what they want. In this example, the student got to leave the class. However, These perspectives do not prioritize the success of our students. Everyone is unique, and the supports that they require to be successful in school will vary and change over time. A student's challenging behavior is not a reflection of us as educators. Instead, it is about the learning environment and the supports that may not yet be introduced to help the student succeed. We are all different, and so are our skills. The student population is diverse, and the skills of students can vary considerably. Not all students will be able to communicate their needs vocally. Not all students will be able to tolerate difficult tasks to the same degree. Not all students will know how to share with their friends. Not all students will know how to handle difficult emotions such as anger or sadness. But all students have the ability to learn and thrive. When a student shows us through their behavior that their skills require individual consideration and possible supports, we can implement strategies to help students thrive within the classroom. Supporting our students. In order to thrive in the classroom, some students will need instructions that are simple and straightforward. Some students will need a communication device, such as an iPad. Some students will need frequent breaks to move their body. Some students will need a visual schedule. Some students will need a reinforcement system. Not all students will require additional individualized supports to thrive at school. If we can identify what the student's behavior is communicating to us, we can ensure that we provide the supports required for their success. Let's go through a final example. A student regularly hits her educational assistant. The student has limited communication skills and primarily uses an iPad to communicate. The hitting often occurs when the student's favorite toy, a dollhouse, is removed, or it's time to move on to another activity. The educational assistant often responds by telling the student that hitting is not kind and to keep her hands to herself. The hitting has been happening for approximately 2 months. The educational assistant is unsure how to stop the student's hitting. Based upon this information, it is likely that the student hits her educational assistant to gain continued access to her highly preferred toy, the dollhouse. This is the tangible function. The student's skill deficit is her ability to request the preferred item appropriately. The problem behavior we want to eliminate is the hitting. The behavior we want to teach is the appropriate requesting. For example, using the student's communication device, the iPad, we can teach her to request more time when the dollhouse ends. After teaching the student to request additional time using her iPad, the student's hitting has decreased significantly. The student's relationship with her educational assistant has improved, and both now look forward to spending parts of their day together. Broadly, by teaching a student how to communicate appropriately, they no longer have the need to engage in problem behavior because they're able to communicate in a way that everyone understands and get their needs met. Final thoughts. All students deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, even when they're having a challenging time. All behavior is communication. A student's challenging behavior is not a reflection of us as educators. The supports a student may need will change over time, and all students can learn and thrive when we provide the appropriate support.